Welcome back. Today we got a Chevy Tracker, also known as a Suzuki Grand Vitara, in the shop today that is throwing a code for a camshaft position sensor. So the car one time didn't start and another time it just conked out, and keep getting a code for the cam position sensor. So this has got the V6 motor in it, a 2.5 liter, I believe. And the camshaft position sensor is right on the back over here. We're going to swap out just the sensor, not the whole assembly, because the complete assembly is very expensive. So I went crazy looking around, trying to find just the replacement sensor, and I came up with one on eBay Motors. That's the part number, made in Taiwan. Doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but we will swap this out and see if it alleviates our problem. Okay, first thing, unplug the sensor. There's the plug right there. You got to push on the tab that is on that side right there and push it off. I got to cram my hands back in there to do it. But we got that unplugged. There looks like what appears to be a cover that's attached with 2 Phillips head screws. Let's take a peek at the sensor itself. This has got 3 holes for it, so that cover's got to cover the whole assembly up. This is sitting in the car like that. So let's get the cover off first. Another potential problem is that the dipstick tube for the automatic transmission is probably in the way. We're going to get the screws off of that cover first. A screw here, and there's another one on the bottom, and see if we could sneak past it. Otherwise, we're gonna have to get down in there and unbolt. Looks like 2 bolts on the side of the transmission holding the dipstick tube in, so we might have to loosen those up to get a little more access. Let's try doing it first without loosening them. See how far we get. All right, the top screw loosened up easily. I could not get to the lower one on the cover because the dipstick tube is in the way, so they are 12 millimeter bolts that hold it on. The top one there is off. The one on the lower part, I just loosened it up so we have enough movement to move this around. I don't want it to fall out of the other end of the transmission. So that should give us enough clearance now to wiggle that past. Okay, use the number 2 Phillips screwdriver to get it out. You have to wiggle around the dipstick tube. The screws will not fall out, which is good, so you don't have to worry about dropping them. So now we have better access to the actual sensor itself. And if you've gotten this far in the video, do me a favor. I love helping people, but I also need some help from you. Like, subscribe, send a comment, all that good stuff. And then we'll continue on with this. We'll figure out what we got to take off next. Change of plans. This has an optical wheel sensor. So there's a little wheel on there that the sensor actually looks through little gaps in it. I could probably take it off where it is in situation, but I think I'll end up dropping screws and getting completely frustrated with it. So we're going to pull the entire assembly out. It's attached with, I believe, 2 Torx head screws. So let's pull that whole assembly out now, and we could change the sensor on the bench. We put some marks on the back of the housing there, so when we slide it back in, it'll go into the same spot. And this is a T40 Torx screw that holds this thing on. With the bolts out, you can push the sensor assembly out. It slides into a hole. Okay, here's the assembly slid out. The little tabs notch into the camshaft to see what position it is as it's spinning. I am going to mark the direction of those things right now, then we'll take the sensor off, and the wheel should be lined up with those marks. I don't know how critical it is, but we're going to put it back in the same exact spot. Okay, we got marks on the back. We also put some small little dots on the front where the edge of the sensor is, and then one over there lining up with that screw head. I do not know how critical it is that this thing needs to be lined up perfectly, but we are going to put it back as close to where it was before. So let's get this wheel off of here now and pull the sensor out. We got the bottom locked up in a vise here, so we could loosen up this screw now. Pull that out, take the wheel off. Well, all my extra caution of marking things is really not necessary because the wheel is keyed. It can only go on one way. You could wiggle this off and take it out. And be careful with it though, it can't get dirty and bent. Oh yeah, gotta take this off too. We got it flipped in the vise now, and now we're going to take out the 3 screws and swap out the sensor. You'll need to pull off this rubber gasket that goes around the plug and slide it onto the new one, and then put the new one in place. Put the new sensor on and tighten up the 3 screws. All right, we've got it sitting back in the vise again. Put on the little sleeve that's here. All right, I got the wheel fitted back in. Let me tighten up the screw on the top. Now we can put the cover back on. The little O-ring around the base of this one was damaged, so I put a little bit of sealant around here. After I tighten it down, I'll probably just smear a little bit of RTV all around the base of it so I know no water will get in there. And then we could throw this back in the car. Okay, the cap is all sealed up. We got our little tabs pointing in the right direction, and we're going to slide this back in and line it up on the little mark that we made on the side. Plug it back in, and hopefully with some luck, it'll start right up and give us no trouble. We have the marks lined up in the same spot. The Torx bolts are tight. The sensor is plugged in. We'll give it a crank and see if it starts. Ah, very good. No check engine light. If you've been paying attention, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and put the transmission dipstick bolts back in. Thank you for watching.
And then Scrap Daddy's Garage in the comments says, "Is that an astrolabe?" And
Why, yes.
the answer is yes.